We'll be starting right at noon or maybe a little after. Get ready to hear a fabulous presentation, I'm sure. And remember that during the presentation, if you think of a question, go to Q&A and ask those questions. We'll be fielding them. We might not answer all, or we might not answer more than one that's the same question. Did that make sense? Anyway, I'm hoping we'll be able to start soon. I'm going to give it a little more time. Eager to get going. I'm kind of nervous. We're kind of rusty here, but I hope you all had a good summer. And I think I'm going to start now. I'm Charles C. Kaler, president of the League of Women Voters of Lane County. And for many years, it's been noted that Third Thursday didn't say anything about the event except the date. And from time to time, even that had to be changed. I'm pleased to welcome you all to the first presentation of our League Lecture Series, which we will endeavor to convene on third Thursdays of the month. Brought to you virtually with the help from Rhonda Livesay, Terry Parker, and Nancy Mills. The League acknowledges we live on the traditional land of the Kalapuya people, whose descendants are citizens of both the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde community and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians of Oregon. We honor the land and the people who have cared for it and reaffirm our commitment to steward and honor the land through our work. Nancy Fadley, if you'll remember, was to be presented today with the Lane County League's Annabelle Kitzhaber Award for Education and Advocacy. The strictures of COVID so limited our options, the board decided on something different. Watch your emails for details. After the speaker presentation, we'll have time for some questions. You can begin to ask now via Q&A, and we'll save them for after. Okay, my screen is doing something crazy, so I'm gonna try to fix it here. And it appears to be working. All right. Born in British Columbia to an athletically minded family and community, Beth Smith became an outstanding basketball player. From 1978 to 1982, she played for the University of Oregon and the Canadian national team and carried a full academic load. She was the first woman player at the U of O to be named an All-American. With no professional opportunities in the US or Canada, she played basketball in Europe for 15 years and participated twice in the Olympics representing Canada. After the second Olympics, she turned from playing to coaching. She was the women's head basketball coach at her alma mater from 2001 to 2009. Then in June of 2015, the 77-year-old Civic Stadium burned to the ground. Coach Smith, by then the executive director of Kidsports, led the effort to raise from the ashes of a beloved landmark a vital new facility for the community. Phoenix-like, wouldn't you say? Who better than a great coach who works every day to build community to help us start a year of league research, education, and advocacy. Today, I'm honored to present our speaker, Beth Smith. You're up, Coach.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And thank you for having me here. I'm honored to be here. And I'm hopeful that it's not so much a lecture, but a conversation. I'm more used to that. And so appreciate the opportunity. Fortunately, we haven't been able to reach out to a lot of people about our new project in Civic Park. And the fortunate part of it is many people approach us and approach me and allow me to help you get to know a little bit more of what we're doing here at Civic Park. And my title today has its beginnings way back when I was a child. And so the title Communities That Work Together, Play Together, and Stay Together really has its beginnings back when I was a child. As Chelsea mentioned, I grew up in a very athletic family. My dad was a hockey player. My mom was a skater, a swimmer. And we we were a team. And so that was my first team. I've always been involved with teams. I feel like when you're on a team, you can always, together, everyone achieves more, which is the acronym for team. And so they were my first team. And my mom and dad, they worked really hard. I had two brothers and a sister. So there was 6 of us. We could have a hockey team if we needed to, or a basketball team or a swimming team, but they worked hard and they played hard in the sense that we were always busy as kids. And so my mom was involved in the PTA. My mom taught skating at the local rink. My dad was a hockey official. He was a hockey referee. They were very involved in our swimming program in the summer. Growing up in Canada, you have a lot of lakes. So you skate them in the winter and you swim in them in the summer. And as a result of that, we were very active. We were always at the hockey rink with my dad doing all kinds of things, or with my mom as she taught us to do skating, and then she got us in there to help teach younger kids skating. Or we were at the curling rink because that was a social place for our community. Or we were at the pool in the summer. So we were always around people. We were always working together. We were always planning together. And our parents always knew that there was a safe place for kids to be that could do constructive and positive things in their lives. And so the vision for the Kidsports Fieldhouse and Civic Park really comes from those moments of my life that I know for my family and my siblings made a huge difference in our lives. We were always physically active, which I believe is so very important, and still to this day, one of the most important phases of a child's life. And so I got lucky again, and I landed on a family of Kidsports, the Kidsports organization, the staff and the team that we have there, and then got to join the Eugene Civic Alliance, which is a nonprofit that was formed to, in fact, build out Civic Park and raise the $30 million that this project has taken to come to fruition. And so I've been very fortunate because it's been a labor of love, I guess. None of us see it as, oh, we got to go out and raise more money again. It's like we get to go out and raise more money for these kids, for our community, so that they can have a space and a place to call their own. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Kidsports. It's an organization that has been in this community since 1954. And I'm only a little bit part of it, with all its history, and it's her story, because it does have an aspect where young ladies in 1972 were invited to play, and that's when it went from the Eugene Boys Athletic Association to the Eugene Sports Program in about 1972. And there's some really good recorded history that we have in some of our scrapbooks, from Register Guard articles and Oregonian articles that speak about, if this is good enough for our sons, it must be great for our daughters as well. And so I want to have a shout out to our former state representative, Nancy, who was actually a part of all of that. I imagine in some level of Title IX and the Equal Rights Amendment, without those kind of people and those kind of women in our past, really forging and knocking down barriers, we wouldn't be here today. I know that for a fact. And for a fact, in 1978, when I came to the University of Oregon, I was one of the first full ride scholarships at the University of Oregon. And certainly I may have had some talent, but without those kind of advocates before me, sort of knocking down barriers and making it possible for this to exist, I certainly wouldn't be in this position right now, because I think for me, being a student athlete, and particularly for being a physically active kid, it really changed my life. It allowed me to pursue something that gave me structure and discipline that I really needed. We grew up in a small town, and the other side of the railway tracks were very, very, very tempting for us to do all kinds of things. And sport and a curling rink and a hockey rink and a pool kept us on the right side of those tracks. And so we're very fortunate. And I remember that. And I think personal is your future. And so working with Kidsports since 1954, it has a mission of all kids play. That means regardless of your ability to play, we will find a team for you to play on. Regardless of your ability to pay, we have a very in-depth scholarship program that if your family is eligible for free lunch, you get a scholarship that helps you pay for those registration fees. We also have an Adopt a School program and an Adopt a Child program, where we will give a child in need a voucher to play a sport for free. So we really do try to be inclusive, and that mission, All Kids Play, has the double entendre of we want everyone to have an opportunity to play, to develop, and have fun. When I started at Kidsports in 2009, we were at Polk Street, and that had been Kidsports' home for a long time. And that small building, served over 22,000 registrants a year up until about 2002. And then as other user groups came into town, Kidsports sort of came down to about 14,000 registrants a year, which for me as an executive director is just perfect, because we can find the right number of quality coaches for that number of kids. We can find the right number of quality officials, because I really believe if sport and physical activity is done in a correct way, there is no other institution that helps children develop not just their physical skills, but their social, emotional, mental, and yes, cognitive skills in ways that they can't get those developed in the classroom. So I think rather than we see maybe sports and physical activity outside of school as extracurricular, I really believe it's co-curricular. And I think I'm really just, I wanted to be a PE teacher all my life. And I just think physical education is so important for our children, and we have systematically removed it from the classrooms in the last 20 years. And so when I go out and watch young kids involved in our programs, I see that they lack some basic movement and motor skills, jumping properly, landing properly, starting properly, stopping properly, having a level of fitness that allows them to be active and enjoy being active. Because if you're not fit, going out and playing a game kind of feels ugly. So if you don't have the ABCs of what we call physical literacy, agility, balance, and coordination, it's like not having the literacy skills to do your numbers in math, or the literacy skills to understand how you start writing from the alphabet to sentences to words to putting it all together. So if you're in third grade and you've never had any kind of reading literacy skills, and you stand up and have to read the book in class, that would be awkward and it would feel terrible. That's just like trying to put a child out on the fields of play without those physical literacy ABCs. It's just not fun. And I hate to break it to you all, but we are still cave people. So we are still, regardless of technology, we still operate on the fight or flight concept. And so it's stressful for kids. And I can't even tell you what it's been stressful in terms of just the whole COVID and the pandemic. And so children, how they react for survival is there's a lot of cortisol coursing through their brain, because that's their survival skill, fight or flight. And if we don't have physical activity, at least 60 minutes a day for children, kindergarten through about 8th grade, they don't have that 60 minutes a day. That cortisol is not combated by the happy hormones. So when you go out and run, or you go out and walk for 20 minutes, what happens is the happy hormones take place: serotonin, dopamine, epinephrine, and now you get a flush of those hormones, which not only helps you mentally, but cognitively, your brain develops in ways when you've exercised that it won't if you don't have physical activity in your life. And so it is critical, in my opinion. And my next goal after we finish off some fundraising here at Civic Park to get phase 1 paid for is trying to get full-time physical education back into our schools, so our kids have a chance to develop in ways that I believe they currently aren't. So that's my next soapbox challenge and career is to help our teachers have kids be, when they come in and sit in the classroom, they're able to learn, because when they have physical activity in their lives, they relax, they're a little bit more ready, and they have better focus and concentration to actually do what they're required to do in classrooms. And then we don't have to tell them no fidgeting anymore. They'll have all that fidgetiness run out of them during physical education. I want to talk a little bit about Eugene Civic Alliance and how we came to this part. And certainly, Chelsea, if there's any questions that I need to answer, don't feel free to interrupt me. I work with kids and they interrupt me all the time, so I'm very used to it. I don't know if you want to take a few questions now, or if you just want me to.
No, we could. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to exercise a point of privilege, though, and say you've mentioned curling and hockey, but not basketball. How did you end up on basketball?
That very good point. And those formative years, I remember being, in the curling rink and in the hockey rink and in the pool. So back in the early 70s, we played on the pond all the time. I played against my brothers and everyone. And then the boys went to minor hockey, which was organized, but girls weren't allowed to go to minor hockey. And my mom was a traditionalist in the sense that she said, you're not playing hockey. It's not ladylike, go find another sport. She never held us back, but that just was outside of her ability to comprehend that I was going to go play hockey. So my sister was playing basketball. I went and watched her junior high basketball, and I saw how much fun their team had. And that's when I decided, well, if I can't play hockey, I'm going to go play basketball. So I was actually a multi-sport athlete all the way through high school. But basketball is my default sport. And so there it was.
No, that's very good. And you may want to work this into your later conversation, but we're eager to hear about the new facility.
Yes, so in joining the Eugene Civic Alliance in around 2014, when I took the job at Kidsports, I really felt we needed our own facility because the schools are great partners. But at that time, schools were shutting down a little bit in terms of the hours, cutting custodial hours. And so our access to schools was after school. So instead of getting in at 3:30 to 9, we were now getting in from 5:30 to 8:30. With 14,000 kids, particularly when you go indoors to play basketball and volleyball, that's just not enough time to give those children adequate practice time and playing time. So I had kind of been working with Jim Torrey, former Mayor Jim Torrey, who had sat in the executive director's chair of Kidsports in 2005 to 2006. And I bounced things off of where can we get a building? We looked at a lot of different things. And then I was invited to a meeting with Art and Derek Johnson, who were kind of the really beginning push to have something recreational at Civic Park. I joined them. We had a discussion. At that point, we were talking about the Y being on here, and I was fine with that. And then they said, well, what does Kidsports need? And I said, we need a 40,000 square foot building that has 4 full-size middle school basketball courts that can convert to volleyball courts and a turf field. And a couple of people said, let's do that. And so we said, all right. And so we came together. Kidsports would be in charge of the programming at the site, and ECA would be responsible, the Eugene Civic Alliance, in raising the money, purchasing in the land, and building out Civic Park. So we came together. Our board is incredible. Nancy Weber, who many of you might know, was the executive director of the Eugene Civic Alliance and poured her life and soul and heart into it. Retired on June 30th, which is another story in itself, but we are taking over her efforts, and I'm helping with the Eugene Civic Alliance in our final construction and fundraising. But we came together. We had to buy the land from the 4J school district, and we had about 6 months to raise $4.1 million. And I can tell you, we got the last check at the stroke of midnight when it was due on February 28th. We didn't think it was going to happen. Then some money came in, we were able to purchase it. We purchased it in April of 2015. Nancy, because of her wealth of knowledge and expertise, we were all patting ourselves on the back, and she said, we need to go get $10,000 more. And we're like, what? We're exhausted, to insure it. And so she got us to get out, and we somehow found the $10,000 to insure the stadium and the property. And on June 29th, 2015, there was that, pretty tragic fire that destroyed a pretty iconic feature in our community. So that was hard. It was very hard on us. We were going to use Civic Stadium as a seating capacity for the field. And so we had plans for it. And the engineers felt it was still a very stable building. We're going to take the plumbing out of it. We're going to take all of the locker rooms out of it. It was just going to be seating capacity. And we could do other things in the park for, access for disabled folks and all of that kind of stuff for ADA compliance. But it burned down. And so it was like, okay, what's plan B? And so we kept going with plan B. The insurance money allowed us to get our architects, our schematics, and get it done. We started raising money. We ended up getting $6 million from the lottery-backed bonds from the state, which really helped us with the site and utility work, because that was $6 million just to make it ready for construction. And since then, we've raised almost $29 $100,000. We are about $900,000 left of that phase one to continue to move. But the facility, I can tell you, has been everything and even more. Robertson Sherwood was our architect. Chambers Construction, a local construction company, was our construction company. They've been fantastic. We have had since June of 2020, when we moved into the building and opened Civic Park, 78,000 visitors, of which a huge percentage of that have been children. And when I talked about having memories of the curling rink and the hockey rink and the pool, we have had children now that don't know anything about Civic Stadium, but they know about Civic Park, and they have incredible summertime, summer camp memories, playing basketball in here, having obstacle course, Ninja Warrior courses, water camps in the summer. It has served Kidsports in a way that we have not been able to serve our community because of our lack of facilities and space. And so it's just been incredible. We had Lane United Football Club run their first inaugural season at Civic Park, which was really fun to see. We've had the choir in here practicing. We have adults in here. We have children. We had an Easter egg hunt. It is a hub that once we are through, this really next wave of COVID, I think we'll continue to have more events and have more people be able to see what Civic Park is really all about and what it offers.
I have a question that sort of refers back to something you were mentioning about your other partners. Do you partner with YMCA at all?
Yes, we do. The Y and Kidsports, and now with Civic Park, we really do align with, we're about a healthy community and being proactive in having a healthy community, and rather than being reactive. And so the Y has a different mission than we do. They are from 0 to 100 years old or beyond. We do have some 100-year-old people that still attend the Y, and they are more about lifestyle, activity, and fitness. We have a lot of cross representatives, people that are in the Y, and people that also partake in Kidsports, where Kidsports is mostly about kids. We're mostly from kindergarten through to 8th grade with some high school sports. And we're generally about, forming teams and having them play together and develop it together and have fun together in their neighborhood schools. The Y does have a small basketball program, and we have really partnered with them. They do a fall and spring, and we do the winter basketball program. So we try to help each other and partner with each other and provide like programs in that area. And then once the Y is into their new building, I think our programming will have a really good opportunity to really work with each other in helping not just children, but we have adult programs here at Kidsports as well. We call them family sports, where we have adult volleyball programs, we have adult basketball programs. We're looking to get some silver sneakers. I saw a question about what about children, with special needs. The Special Olympics are coming in on Sunday mornings from 9 to 12 to be on the turf field and to be in our field house. And we will continue to offer those programs. What is really, held us back right now is the COVID and the protocols and the capacity that we have indoors versus outdoors. But slowly, we're beginning to understand how we can navigate around those protocols, have people come in, be active, but also be safe and healthy.
Good. Can you expand on the question about kids sports for children with disabilities?
Yeah, so we serve children with pretty high levels of autism in our sport programs, and in particular at our summer camps. We're able to really have some instructors, go with them, help them, try to integrate them so that they feel like they're a part of summer camp with all the other children. We are still working on partnerships where we're looking to have, some wheelchair basketball come in. We're looking to have some programs that deal exclusively with children that aren't able to sort of integrate with the other children. And those have been difficult to organize just because of the lack of I wouldn't say, well, just the lack and the hesitation on parents to bring children into a situation like that because of COVID. And so a lot of them are asking questions, and we're talking to them, and we're trying to formulate that, but we haven't been able to turn that around in a functioning program other than bringing in children with our summer camps and our PE Fusion and our Fit Kids programs that we've never done before. So PE Fusion is a PE class that we run Monday through Thursday for kids that want to come in and have a couple hours of phys ed. We've moved to Tuesday, Thursday now because school is back in person. So kids aren't online and not able to come until after school. And so we integrate some of those children with special needs into our PE Fusion and into our Fit Kids. And now we're looking to expand on those programs and work with the city, because they do have some really cool programs with children with disabilities and needs, and to also integrate that into what's happening here at the field house and on the turf field.
Very good. We so appreciate your team approach. And now we'd like to hear a little more about the people on your staff.
Yeah, so for Kidsports, we have 15 full-time employees. And so, they're like, what do you do? Well, we have this fall, we have tackle football, rookie tackle football going, we have flag football, and we have soccer all at the same time. It's our biggest season. So we have probably around 3,500 kids active in those three sports. And so we register them, we put them in teams, we assign the coaches, we get the coaches' paperwork all taken care of and off the checklist. Then we get the coaches to a meeting, we get them to determine when they're going to have practices and what time they're going to have practices. We get the information out to the parents that they're going to practice at this time, at this school. We schedule those practices, and then we get all the teams together, and then we schedule the games that occur mostly on the weekends throughout the city of Eugene and Springfield. And so that's my facility and my equipment room staff. I have 3 sports managers who have 2 high school areas per sports manager, and they are responsible for recruiting the coaches, training the coaches, retaining the coaches, forming the teams, and having communication with the parents. I have a scheduler who does all the game scheduling, which we still don't know how he does it. He really is the person that runs Kidsports. And then we have myself as an executive director. I have a finance and HR teammate, and I have a development teammate. And we have a facilities crew that then goes out and paints and puts all the goals out and paints all the fields and gets them ready to play, plus all of the facility work we have here at Kidsports. Kidsports also has a 15-member board of directors. And then we work alongside the Eugene Civic Alliance, which has 11 board of directors. John Anderson is our board president. John's got a prolific background in the community as a business person, but also as a prolific Olympic runner and Boston Marathon championship back in the day. And so we're very fortunate to have, like I said at the beginning, I've landed with a couple of great teams, and there's no way you can do any of this or be in a successful team by yourself. And so I'm often a little bit at odds with being just a spokesperson, because I've got a great team that without them, I would still be circling the parking lot somewhere, because I give them ideas and they bring them back to me in ways that are just, I'm like, that is never going to work. And every time it works. And so I just really have to acknowledge all of them that have made this, possible.
It sounds like you've got a lot of volunteers too. So do you have any out of the box jobs for volunteers besides referees and coaches?
Yeah, so you're right. And that's our volunteer coaches are what makes our world go around. I just cannot thank them enough. They are incredible. The energy, the enthusiasm, they drive some kids, they pay for some kids' registration, they pay for kids' shoes. I can't help it, Bev. I got to get this kid out there. I got to give him a chance. They stay up all night thinking about, how do I get my kids to form? How to get them to play together? How do I get this kid more engaged? And it's a volunteer work. And so I often say to other nonprofit, executive directors, what would you do if you had 1,400 volunteers in your program? And they said, 1,400, we would, change the world, and we are changing the world. Our coaches help to change kids' lives with a trajectory. And again, I must say, it's very important that we have quality coaches. And so we vet those coaches with a background check. We vet those coaches with concussion training. We vet those coaches with a how to coach kids video that talks about why you're here and why you're coaching. And if you're just here to win all the games, that's not the reason you should be here. How we evaluate our coaches is how many kids from your team come back next year. How many kids are excited to take on the next sport. And we keep adding to this certification process for our coaches, because it was background check, concussion, how to coach kids, and now it's COVID training, and now it's prevent student abuse, which is safe sport, which are all very, very important. But for a volunteer coach, that's a lot. And so sometimes when I have a volunteer coach say that that's a lot, I say, okay, listen, what if you were volunteering for the fire department? You kind of want to know how to, get out of the fire. You'd kind of want to know what the toolbox is to do your job in the best way possible. And we are talking about children here. And that is a sacred task to coach those children, in a sense that we have to be our best and give our best. And so, we have probably 85 to 90% of coaches that really understand it. Some of them want to win so badly that they warp everything and only play a couple of kids and blah, blah, blah. But we work with them, we go out, we teach, we try to make them understand the bigger picture. And in COVID, what we've really learned is, because we had everybody here in our games, we really got coaches to meet other coaches and see that they're actually coaching together, that they should be, even though I'm coaching against you, we should be coaching on the same side of the ball to give it all kids the best learning experience possible, because that's what it's about. It's about learning. They are learning out there. And so, of course, our parents are involved and they are excited. They want to coach their kids from the sideline or cheer them. So we also have expectations of how they cheer. And so we talk about directional cheering, which is shoot it, tackle him. That's for the coach. So you can't do directional cheering. You get to do non-directional cheering, which is play hard, good job, keep it going. That is about encouragement. And there's 5 words we let our parents say at any time. And that's, I love watching you play. And so trying to keep everybody in their lane in terms of helping kids in a learning experience. Because when I coach, that rectangle is my classroom. And so I want to be able to direct that classroom. And we often talk that games are like tests for kids. And so when's the last time you've been able to go into your 3rd grade daughter's room when she's taking her little math test and encourage her and tell her what the answers are? Never. So that's how you need to see it. That's a learning environment for them. It's a classroom. Encourage them, tell them you love watching them play. And then the most important thing in a Kidsports games, number 1, the snacks at halftime, and number 2, the snacks at the end of the game. That's really what you have to remember.
And along that line, though, how do you avoid, prevent or counteract tribalism among and between different teams and different sports, especially the more competitive sports? Or is that just a matter of policing the parents?
It is. I mean, there's some really fun rivalries in this town. There's, Churchill versus South and South versus Sheldon. And, and those carry, trickle down all the way to little, we've got kindergarten kids they want a green jersey because it's Sheldon, or we got a purple jersey because it's South. They've got siblings that have played for South. And so we try to use that in a positive way. And we try to create, yes, without, we want those rivalries. I mean, sport inherently, you have to have a competitor, right? And so you got to learn to love your competitor, because if your competitor is a good competitor, they're going to bring out the best in you. They're going to bring out the best in you in terms of your ability to play against them, in your ability to respond to them. You're not going to win every game. So we tell coaches, be prepared for that. Like, what are you going to do if you lose a game? How are you going to explain it? Well, it's not a loss. It's a lesson. There's lessons in here, right? you're never a loser unless it's your last game, and still then you're going to take some lessons out of that. So, turn those losses into lessons. Mistakes have to be made. That's how children learn, and that's why you can't overcoach them. And so, to try and avoid those sort of pockets of where this is Willamette and we got to kill Sheldon because, we try to get our coaches to see that Willamette, you want Sheldon to be a great team. You want Sheldon to be well coached, because then that brings out the best in you. And, certainly we get some moments of real tension. I think that's part of it. We look to mitigate it. We look to be out there. We look to mediate it. And most of the time when someone does get angry after the game, maybe goes off, we'll talk to them the next day and they immediately apologize and go, it's very emotional out there right now, as you all know. There's an angst of simmering anxiety just bubbling up. And when you put families in a situation, now there's competition, a little bit of tension, sometimes it just happens. It's not vicious. It's just, they are up to here with this whole situation. It's not an excuse, but usually we're able to mediate and find that they're apologetic for it. And they let their children know that that's not the way you handle adversity. You handle adversity in a calm, composed, compassionate way, and calm and composed and compassionate is contagious.
One of the concerns, though, that we have is, do you have enough coaches for soccer, for instance?
So I think coaching, I think this fall we had to I think turn away 2 teams. We couldn't find coaches. But what we were able to do with those children was place them on other teams. So we didn't lose them completely. But we do need more coaches, and we need coaches who understand that this is a learning environment, and that, when you coach, you have an impact on that child. And a lot of people ask us, well, we want to sign up and we want to know when our practices are. Why can't you have practices Monday, Wednesday, and Friday? And then that helps with our schedule. Well, our coaches are volunteer, and so they actually have a full-time job somewhere. And so they are going to tell us when they can practice given their job and their family obligations. And so that's hard for coaches. But what parents don't understand is, if you coach, you get to determine your practice time. You get to determine when you practice. You get to determine your game schedule, because we have a conflict game schedule form that you can fill out if you're going to have a birthday party, or you're going to the Duck game down in Arizona. So as a coach, there's a little work involved with it, but you also get to set the schedule of how you're going, to facilitate that year of sport.
So how do you recruit coaches? Do you count on parents, or is there another way to reach out for
Yes,
possible?
Typically kindergarten through 5th grade are our parents. And you'll usually this is how it usually works. You get a parent that's going to coach soccer. They coach soccer for that group in kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. And then they move to volleyball. And then a mom will take over, and same group, different parent. And then they'll go into basketball, same group, now a different parent. And they talk amongst each other. If you coach soccer, I'll coach basketball, and so that word of mouth is really cool. And they end up, coaching different sports. It's not all on one person. And then you have a parent that is just all out. I'm going to coach everything because I love it all. I want to be in charge of my kid's schedule, and they will do all year round. So we recruit coaches through our parents. We also recruit coaches through the high schools. We recruit coaches from Bushnell University, from Lane Community College, from the University of Oregon. In our older programs, 6th through 8th, we would rather have those sort of neutral, objective people coach the kids, because there is some team formations where kids are selected based on skills so that they have an opportunity to compete against like competition. And sometimes if you have parents in there, they're going to get Johnny and his friend Joey, and it doesn't seem as objective as it should be. But kids generally, they will play where they land if you just give them an opportunity to have time with their coach and with their new teammates.
Very good. Remembering that this is the league, what made you decide to use artificial turf? Any concerns with exposure to possible carcinogens, hydrocarbons? Did you have testing?
Yes, and so the turf field we have here at Civic Park is a full-size FIFA turf field. It's AstroTurf. They have gone through a number of testing with the pellets that they do use. And you know, in terms of, it's not just cost, because it does cost to maintain it, but it is a little bit safer for kids in the sense that it's, you know, if you go out and play on our school fields, they're not as well maintained as they used to be because we've cut budgets. And now with climate change, there's a lot of really hard fields that crack and have holes in them and are just very uneven. And so I'm okay with that in the sense that we played on those fields, right? You know, it kind of toughens you up and kind of, you know, get that raspberry on your knee or something. It is helpful. But the turf fields have been vetted. The turf fields have been, by both the city and the school districts, have all been vetted as being safe. They're in all of our school districts. I'm not saying that's right, but we have had no strong research that shows there's any indication that it's unhealthy.
Well, we've run out of questions for right now, although some more might come up. Is there anything you haven't said that you'd like to?
Oh, I could talk forever about all of this. And, you know, I really feel that, you know, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to your group. You people move mountains, and you've been fundamental to all kinds of things happening in this community. And you are a true team yourself, because if you play on a successful team, the reason a team is successful is because really no one cares who's getting the credit. You just get it done, right? And so I want to thank you for all of what you do under the radar. You do so much under the radar. And I went in my small town, I know there was a group of people that were involved with the Rotary Club, and you know, my parents couldn't afford me to send me to summer camp. And the next thing I knew, I was on a bus with a ticket and going to summer camp down in Vancouver for basketball. And I didn't know, you know, how that happened. You know, but then as I grew older, I came to know it was the Rotary Club. You know, they found a way to get, you know, some kid down to this camp. And I know that happens all the time. And I know that happens in your league. And I know all of the work you do behind the scenes. And I think it's so important. So if you ever feel like you're not making a difference, you are. You really are. And so it's so special and important to have this kind of community such as yourself, because it's really too, communities that work together and play together, they really do stay together, and they really do accomplish great things.
Thank you. And one question did pop up, and another one in my mind. I'll do mine because the other one's written down. I don't have to worry about remembering it. Salmon Arm, how big is that?
Salmon Arm, yes. When I was growing up, it was about 15,000 people population. And then now it's up to 22,000. It's on a lake called the Shuswap Lake. So we're in the salmon arm of the Shuswap Lake. It has 4 arms. And the reason it's salmon arm is that the salmon used to unbelievably travel 380 miles up the Fraser River, then the North Thompson, and then into the salmon arm to deposit their eggs for the salmon run. And it was so prolific that the farmers used to pitch salmon on their fields for fertilizer. And so that's why it's called salmon arm of the Shuswap Lake. There's 4 other arms. The salmon don't come up as far anymore. They come up to a smaller lake that's on a tributary a little bit further southwest, which is Adams Lake. When I was a kid, we would always go out to school trips. That was our school trip, you know, to go out to see the salmon spawn, which was pretty spectacular. It's probably why I don't like salmon right now as an adult, because we used to then, you know, throw it at each other and then get on the school bus, and you can imagine what that smelled like. So, yeah.
That's funny. And so reflective of probably our population in the league, how do grandparents interact with Kidsports? Do you have any idea?
Oh, grandparents are the best. They love to be at games. They love to come. They, you know, when we were in COVID, unfortunately, we had to limit spectators, right? And so we could only have 2 spectators per child. And that was a nightmare for families and grandparents. And, you know, they love to see their kids, you know, out there and play. And We have some coaches. Roy Gray still coaches with us, and I think he's a great grandfather. We have guys and gals that really just keep coaching with us and are involved. But they bring kids, they get kids here. They're still part of the family. They're still part of the team, and so we enjoy that aspect of seeing them come out to watch our games.
Here's an interesting, for me, my children, all three of my children were part of Kidsports involved. But I probably will have sticker shock to the answer here, but what are the charges for playing with Kidsports?
Yes, so the registration fees, we try to keep them as reasonable as possible. And so I think, for example, for kindergarten, well, and there's different registration fees. So for example, kindergarten, first grade soccer, they don't have any officials. So there's no expense with the officials. So I think that's probably around $100 a child for a season. And remember, if you do have, so those include practices, those include games, those include your little uniform. And if you are eligible for a free lunch or you have a need, you can always request a scholarship that provides a reduction in those registration fees. As you go older, so 3rd through 8th grade soccer, 2nd through 8th grade soccer, all have officials. And so now there's that added layer of paying our officials. Our officials are paid versus our volunteer coaches. And so I think for our older kids, 5th and 6th, 7th and 8th soccer, I think it's about $125 per season. That would be that registration fee. And so we try to keep them very reasonable. A lot of people ask, well, what do we get? We get a silly little shirt, and what next? Well, we have registration software costs so that you can register online. We have customer service people that do a yeoman's work of getting people registered and in the right place. We have our sports managers that I can tell you work at least, if not 60 hours a week trying to get that all done. You have insurance costs, which are really quite they're a lot. Our insurance costs for liability and accident, and for our staff. We also have thousands of pieces of equipment that we give out to our coaches so that their kids can play. And so it all adds up quite quickly. But we really try to, that's why our all kids play is so important to us. We feel that all children should have the right to play, and it's really important to their development. And I can tell you, in 10 years, I guess it's 11 now that I've been at Kidsports, we have never turned a child away. We find a way for them to play. So,
which brings up, how do people contribute financially to support
good
Kidsports?
question. Who asked that question?
Linda Lynch, bless her heart.
Linda, thank you, Linda. Yes, so of course we're we have a direct mail campaign, and we have a really great database, and so you can donate to Kidsports for our Emerald Scholarship Fund. And if you go onto kidsports.org, there's a donate page where you can just do it really quickly. You can come and you can send it to Kidsports 2054 Amazon Parkway. You can bring it by. And speaking of that, Charles, I don't know if you can organize it, but I'd love to take all of you or any of you on a tour of our building. You're more than welcome to come. We're very safe. We wear masks. It's a big place, so we can keep socially distant. You're more than welcome to come over here and see it, because I think many people drive by it. It's a beautiful space and place for kids, and I think you would enjoy seeing that and all the amenities that we have going on with that. I can tell you, the Eugene Civic Alliance, I am now the managing director of Civic Parks. So I have taken over the responsibilities that Nancy Weber so creatively and competently created for the Eugene Civic Alliance. Out of the $30 million capital campaign, we now have a little more than $900,000 to go to finish that campaign and to be debt free. So in March 2020, you know how hard that was, and we were $5 million short. We had secured a $6 million construction loan from First Interstate for an eventual crisis that we didn't know would be a pandemic. But in March of 2020, we were three months out from finishing the project, and we had to make a decision: draw on the loan or stop the project. So of course we drew on the loan. You can't stop a project that we would never get it finished because of rising costs between when you start it up again. So we drew on the loan. So we have a little bit of a loan payment as well, but that will be paid for with the pledges that our donors have given out 22, 23, 24. But if we can raise if we can raise $900,000, then we completed the $30 million capital campaign. And so if there's anyone that has a friend that is looking to win a lottery ticket or help Civic and Kidsports get to a place where this place would be debt-free, I can tell you this would be something where now Kidsports and the Eugene Civic Line and Civic Park would be able to manage their own park for a long time.
That's a wonderful idea. And I think the league will take you up on your offer of a tour. So we'll be in touch about that.
Yes, I'm serious. And I'm always here. So we can do it in the evening when there's fewer people. We can do it on the weekend. Just let me know and we will.
In fact, I think one of our leaguers was in a walking group that was peeking in the windows and you invited him in and gave him a tour. So we know how welcoming you can be. Thank you very much. And I think we're close to having one more question to tie this up with. And how can adults model fitness?
Yeah, that is a very good question. And it's something that it's really basic, just walking. I do have a PowerPoint presentation, and one of the PowerPoint presentations captures for when I'm trying to really advocate for physical education and activity in schools is we can now do brain imaging, right? And so there's two brains that I show. One brain is very blue, very dark. It's a resting brain. It hasn't had any activity. And then there's a brain that has been imaged just after 20 minutes of walking, and it's pulsing with energy. It shows development of the cognitive areas of the brain. And that 20 minutes helps that brain develop in ways that a zero wouldn't help in any way. So only 20 minutes. So it's a walk to school. It's a walk around the block. It is in the backyard chasing a ball. It's, getting the old skipping rope. It is learning how to hopscotch. We had summer camp this year. We had all the whistles and bells. We had a water camp. We had obstacle courses. We had footballs, basketballs. We had, all kinds of things. And I came in one morning. They all had come in. There was I think the morning group was kindergarten through fourth grade, and we had about 120 kids in all their separate groups. And then they have a break. And so I looked down, and someone had brought a piece of chalk, and they had made the world's longest hopscotch little line and course. And I'm telling you, they played as much on that during the day than they did with all of our whistle and bells equipment, right? And so it's really basic, just walking 20 minutes, going in the backyard. If you don't have a backyard, go down to the park, get on a bike. It's really easy to keep kids active, and they need it. We have kids coming into the park that won't come into the park when there's other kids around now because they've been in their basements, on videos and on screens. And this is overwhelming to them to be with other kids again when they haven't been for sometimes 6 to 8 months. And so the trauma that we have with children right now is palpable. And we talked with our coaches both this year and that about trauma-informed coaching, trauma-informed teaching. Just assume that all of your kids have had some kind of trauma. You don't have to diagnose if they've had trauma, but you have to relate to them and say, if there's a behavior coming out manifesting in it, it's not their willful disobedience. It's they're trying to survive this moment with either disassociating or dysregulating, and you have to get them back into regulation. So that means you have to be in regulation to be able to do that. And so we try to give them some tools. When you see a child, you don't say what happened, what's going on, what's happening, what are you thinking, what's going on, not what's wrong with you, but what's happening with you, how can I help you? Be curious, not furious, is what we basically try to help our coaches with, because kids are really, really struggling. Even those that seem, competent and confident, there's some stuff there that I think we're going to have to work out in the next few years.
That sounds like really good advice and a call to action, which I think leaguers respond to. Do you have any final thoughts before we close this out?
No, just thank you for this community. It's an incredible community. We are slowly forging new partnerships, again, with the schools, with the University of Oregon, I think it takes a village literally to really get a healthy community. And what we're wanting to do is try to be proactive and pre-active. And we talk about the, physical literacy and the agility, the balance, the coordination, all of those skills are actually what we call prehab. So doing your prehab so that you don't get hurt, and do your rehab. That's a lot longer and more, monotonous and whatnot. So that is fundamental, is just trying to promote activity in any way possible, in any way you can, not only as a child, but we need to be active. We need to get out. We need to walk. We need to get that cortisol out of our system. And sometimes at the end of the day, that's the last thing you want to do, but it's the best thing you can do.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor to have you speak to us. And I think you've struck a chord with most of us. And thank you too for your work. It's extraordinary. You have moved mountains, I'm sure. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I'm sorry I couldn't have met you all in person, but we will get there one day. Let's work hard towards that. We're trying to be vigilant and keeping kids safe. So it's a big task. And again, appreciate all you do.
Thank you very much. Please tune in for our next League Lecture Series in October, when our speaker will be Springfield City Manager Nancy Newton. Check your inbox or mailbox for the Argus newsletter next week for more details on that. And onward in good health, and stay that way. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye-bye.